Hey rockers, welcome back to Bloody F Mess Official. Tonight I was going to talk to you about a band from Los Angeles and a band from London because they did a double tour. It was a killer show actually back in the summer of 2022, just a few years ago, yet my memory slipped me until earlier tonight when I remembered this awesome performance. I'm talking about the band X from Los Angeles, California, one of the very first of the great punk bands from Los Angeles. Since 1977, they've been pumping out music. Well, they were the opening act for the Psychedelic Furs on the Made of Rain tour, which was the first album the Psychedelic Furs have done in about 3 decades, which is a lot of time, man. The show happened at the Brittfest in Jacksonville, Oregon. The Brittfest basically is a music and arts festival. It's an annual event. It takes place in Jacksonville, Oregon every year. Tons of bands come out and play. It goes on for months, and it just phenomenal artists come out there and play. It has a capacity of 2,200 people. And when they announced that the Psychedelic Furs were going to be there, I was like, I'm going. And then they said X is the opening act. I was like, wow, one of my favorite bands on earth. And I've gotten to see X quite a few times. There's other stories about the band X, including meeting them, on this channel if you'll check out the video section. Do me a favor, man. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Give the video a like at the end if you like it. And leave a comment if you would. So we went to the Brittfest early that day. I went there with some friends, or perhaps my daughter, my youngest daughter. I can't remember who in the hell I went with now. But I went there with some records in hand because I wanted to meet the Great Butler brothers. That's right, Richard and Tim Butler, the vocalist and bass player of the Psychedelic Furs, who started the band back in London in '77. Always been a fan of the Psychedelic Furs ever since MTV started airing the video and the song for Love My Way. What a great tune, man. It's one of those tunes you can't get out of your head. It's haunting, kind of arty. They're kind of a post-punk band. They used the name Psychedelic in their band name because they wanted to separate themselves from the punk rockers who denounced like a lot of rock and roll from the 60s. But the Psychedelic Furs, they liked the stuff from the 60s and they liked punk, but they wanted to do something different, and they did, because the Psychedelic Furs are so unique, man. And the show is definitely not a letdown. The fact that X was opening was killer. Of course, that night, the Psychedelic Furs consisted of Richard Butler on vocals, Tim Butler on the bass, Amanda Kramer, who's been with the band since 2003. She's been with the band 10,000 Maniacs, a band called the Information Society. They had Zach Alford on drums, a guy who has worked with Springsteen, Bowie, the B-52s, Rich Good on guitar from The Pleased, a great English guitar player, and a super cool dude that I got to hang with after the show. And then the late, great Mars Williams, who was with the Furs from 1983 on, who actually passed away November 20th of 2023. Rest in peace to Mars Williams, who was very cool to me. We got to the Brittfest to catch the band doing a sound check. Yep, it was awesome. It wasn't very long, but when the guys were walking in to do sound check, I had my vinyl. Richard and Tim Butler were kind enough to stop and sign my records and do some photos with me and stuff, which was super cool. Actually, I was with my youngest daughter, Audrey, at this event. That's right. Now it hits me. But they were super cool, man. Richard Butler had on his black shirt with like polka dots all over it, white dots. Super arty looking, just like you would expect Richard Butler, the great Richard Butler, to look like. I just love his vocals, man. Big fan of the Psychedelic Furs. Of course, The Ghost in You, and they have the song called Sister Europe, which is probably one of my favorite songs by the Psychedelic Furs. Of course, what else did I want to tell you guys? Yeah, before the show, Mars Williams, the saxophone player, and he was, by the way, not only did he pass away, but more information you might not know about Mars Williams, he was also in the band The Waitresses. I know what boys like, I know what guys want, that band. So he had a rich history doing new wave and doing the post-punk stuff and being a longtime member of the Psychedelic Furs. He was super friendly before the show, took some photos with me, as did the Butler brothers. I'm going to post those on the community section of this here channel. If you go to my community section, you'll see a lot of photos that I post just about once a day. Anyway, It was great to meet Mars. It was great to meet Amanda Kramer, keyboard player. She was super friendly, talking about her days with Natalie and 10,000 Maniacs, etc. But meeting the Butler brothers was cool. They were super eccentric guys from England, and I've always wanted to meet them. They were super friendly, just a little bit chatty. You know, they were cool, very approachable. They weren't pretentious or assholes by any means. They were cool. We tried to get a hold of X before the show too. I was actually in touch with DJ Bonebreak, who's been a guest on my radio show, as has John Doe. But I was texting back and forth with him, but we didn't quite get a chance to meet up with the band X or get to meet them before the show. But it was cool to meet Psychedelic Furs. After the show, I got to hang out with guitar player Rich, who was super cool, man. Rich Good, just a really cool guy, great style. When X hit the stage, the place was packed. All the people that are into punk rock were up front. It was great to watch X during the daylight. It was real. We were really close up, like this far away from me to this camera. It was really cool, man. And I got some photos of Exene and John Doe and Billy Zoom. The whole band were smoking hot. They were all on it that night. I actually have a copy of the actual set list that guitar player, bass player, singer John Doe wrote. These are handwritten set lists from this show, August 10th, 2022. And here's a copy of that same set list that was on stage that was autographed for me by guitar player Billy Zoom. And speaking of Billy Zoom, during the show, my good friend Steve Westkirchen snapped a really cool picture of me and Billy, which is really awesome. So it was nice that Billy took the time to walk over and take the time to do that. I'm going to post that photo, again, on the community section of this channel soon. I made some notes here. X came on first, of course, and looking at the set list, I can tell you they did a really killer set, man, with a lot of songs. Beyond and Back, Free, Because I Do. They did Devil Doll, Alphabet Land, which is, by the way, a great album, Alphabet Land. White Girl, classic X song. They did True Love. I love that song. Dancing with Tears, Come Back to Me. Then, of course, X being on stage, it was just so neat because those guys are such legends and they still sound like the records. And actually even better live, I think, because it just got that raw feel. And it's still the original X. It's so great. I Must Not Think Bad Thoughts was the next song, and that's one of my favorite X songs, actually. They did Who You Know, Water and Wine, Goodbye Year, The Phone's Off the Hook, But You're Not, a classic punk rock song by X. They did Los Angeles, of course, which was a crowd favorite. Everyone was singing along. They did Nausea, probably... Here I go again. Probably one of my very favorite songs by the band X. Sugar Light, Motel Room, and they closed with their cover of The Doors, Soul Kitchen. Of course, Ray Manzarek, The Doors keyboard player, was the X original producer. Played some keys with them, produced them. I think he even managed them, perhaps. I could be wrong there. But X was phenomenal. They did not disappoint. Great, great show by the band X. Then the Psychedelic Furs went on. It was dark out at this point, which was good because the Psychedelic Furs being a very arty band, I was hoping to see kind of a lot of lights and some effects and see how the guys were going to dress because they are a very arty band. And with the name Psychedelic Furs, it was cool though, man. They were all decked out, dressed very smart. Bass player Tim had his hair hanging down over his shades on stage and was singing along to the lyrics, bending down into the crowd singing aloud. You could tell he's the same guy he always was. Just, we all get a little older, but inside we still retain that same everything. And I could tell they all did, man. And singer Richard Butler, very theatrical. The guy was awesome, just a stellar performer with great vocals. The band came out and did Love My Way, first song. It was just a epic way to open the show. I was totally singing along. The lights were coming down. They had a lot of different cool light effects. They did I Want to Sleep With You, and then into the legendary Mr. Jones. Then they did You'll Be Mine, Dumb Waiters, which was a hit for them in the United Kingdom, I believe. The Boy That Invented Rock and Roll was next, into a song called Wrong Train. And again, just real theatrical. Everyone in the band was very, very professional, and every move they made felt like we were watching a film almost, just with the lights and the way they performed. The Psychedelic Furs, top-notch performers in this guy's book. They did Imitation of Christ, and then, of course, The Ghost in You, another video that was on MTV a lot. A great song, The Ghost in You, which was also, I think, during the second season of the Netflix series Stranger Things. Stranger Things is where they used that song, actually. Then the band did President Gas, which is a long-time, big, very well-known song by the Furs, if you're a fan. President Gas. And then, of course, Pretty in Pink, one of the songs the band is known the most for, and title track to the John Hughes film, Pretty in Pink. Great tune. It's a little on the pop side, of course, but I like pop. But yeah, it was definitely a radio hit. There'll never be like love. This'll Never Be Like Love. Can't read my own damn handwriting. This'll Never Be Like Love was the next song on the list. Then they did No One, and then Heaven, another hit for the band. I love the song Heaven by the Psychedelic Furs, and it was very cool, again, watching the theatrics of Richard Butler and Tim Butler. They did not let down. I will say, my youngest daughter, Audrey, who was with us, said she really loved X. She's a fan of X. She thought she would like the Furs more than she did, so in her opinion, they were kind of boring. But in my book, they were just awesome. Exactly what I expected. Heartbreak Beat was next, and then they closed with a really great version of India. I believe that's on my other YouTube channel. You can go to my other YouTube channel by typing in one word, The Church of Rock, all spelled together. And you can type the Psychedelic Furs, Brittfest, Jacksonville, Oregon, August 2022, and you'll find at least one song by the Psychedelic Furs, maybe even X that night. I can't remember what's on my own damn channels. But, you know, I wanted to talk about this show. Afterwards, we went out front and we were just hanging out while the guys were all leaving and stuff. And like I said, guitar player Rich Good came over to me. We hung out for about a half hour, talked about all kinds of rock and roll and about the Psychedelic Furs being on the road. And he was a really cool dude, man. We had a long talk. He lives down, I think, either in Northern California or by the Bay Area. I can't remember what he said, but just a really, really good, cool guy. And if you've ever witnessed Rich on stage, you know he's just one of those guys that's very captivating, killer guitar player, very tasteful, not like a metal or punk guitar player, but just, how do you explain the sound of the Furs, really? Post-punk doesn't quite do it for me. I did make a note. Is that the word I wrote? Yeah, post-punk. Anyway, my friends, thanks for watching this video. Little talk about the Psychedelic Furs. Cool guys to meet. Great band to see live. X was stellar. I'll have more interesting videos coming up soon. But if you have any comments, leave them below. Thanks for subscribing. And long live the Psychedelic Furs and long live X. Cheers.